Hey, it's Steven, your host for the Black Doctors podcast. The idea for this podcast was born from this campaign I launched back in February, #MakeBlackHistory. I am continuously inspired by the excellence represented by my peers who've overcome so many incredible obstacles to reach the pinnacle of their success. This podcast forum will provide an avenue to organize these stories for others to listen to and to learn from. This podcast is our stories told by us. I'm going to be talking today with Dr. Kayana Ward, so let's get her on the line. Dr. Ward.
Hello. What up?
What's going on?
Nothing much is going on.
So,
Thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Bradley.
Please call me Steven.
Steven? Okay. I know your real name.
We go way back. We don't need to
Yes.
Get into that on here. But tell me about your current job. I know you're obstetric. Edit shit out. Okay. I know you're a faculty member currently in the field of obstetrics and gynecology. You trained in New York. Tell me about your current job and the roles that you play at your program.
Yeah. So I'm one of the OBGYN faculty members at SUNY Downstate. So it's mainly, delivering patients, seeing, consults, and in terms of, surgeries, GYN surgeries, procedures for obstetrics, and also have an outpatient clinic. So we see a variety of patients, annual follow-ups and prenatal visits and stuff like that. Because I'm at an academic institution, I'm also faculty member that handles the OBGYN residents. So we have a program that's 4 years that takes 6 residents every year. I recently became the associate program director. Thank you. So I handle a lot of the administrative duties um, for the residents, also their curriculum and evaluations and stuff like that. I'm also the clerkship director for the women's health clerkship for third-year medical students at SUNY Downstate. So I also run their curriculum and their 6-week-long clerkship.
Incredible. And I know you have extensive history in the city of New York, and that's also where you
Yes.
chose to come back and train and ultimately practice. So tell me about that. How much does that mean to you to serve that patient population?
It means the world to me. I'm originally from New York. I trained at Howard for med school with Dr. Bradley. So the patient population is very similar. I wanted to serve, the underserved, the patient population that has healthcare disparities, people that look like me, because I didn't grow up with a doctor in my family, and I thought that it was also not only to provide healthcare to people that look like me, but to also serve as an example so that people know that this is attainable, that they can go into medicine.
Absolutely. And along the same lines, what drew you to the field of obstetrics and gynecology?
Actually, when I started med school, I thought I was going to go into anesthesia. I didn't think I didn't think I was going to do obstetrics. It was the one thing I said I would never do. And then if you remember first year of med school, like the first 2 years, they make you do like shadowing in your field of interest. And so I shadowed anesthesia, and I was just like, yeah, this is not for me. I was like, I can't. Like, you don't really, for me, I wanted that patient lifelong
Easy
bond where
now.
I
We're
get
about
to
to
see
drop this
you.
connection.
Right.
We better drop this phone call. Boop, boop.
You know what I mean? I wanted to know my patients and see them, at different, aspects of their life. And, I felt like for me, that was something that was really important when it was time for me to decide on a specialty. And when I thought about it, for me, anesthesia didn't fulfill that, but obstetrics and gynecology did. And I was able to, I'm able to operate. I'm able to go in a clinic. I can switch up in drop of a hat. So, and it was also important to me to have some academics and some teaching in there as
Hmm.
well. So, it fulfilled it 100%.
Well, for what it's worth, I think it's a good fit for you. I definitely appreciate your expertise. I don't know if you remember when I was an intern and I was working in the emergency department, that godforsaken place, and I had to call you for a curbside consult.
you know, it's it's something that happens fairly often. I have a lot of colleagues that do call me and are like, "Well, I just got I have a question. I have an OB question. I have a GYN question." It happens fairly frequently.
Oh yeah, and I forgot about all them personal consults I've been calling you for, but we don't need to talk about that. Um,
Yeah.
so when it comes to OB, now that you have finished residency, you're board certified, you're assistant program director, clerkship director, what is your lifestyle like?
Um, the first year after residency, I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. Because, I was taking a lot of call. I had, a lot of different responsibilities, and I was also trying to study and prepare for the oral board. So the first year was a little tough. And it was because I feel, I took on a lot, but that's what I felt like I could handle, and I was able to, succeed in that. I still, take a decent amount of call. I'm probably on call once a week and every other weekend, but I still am able to go out, see my family, have fun, shop, do the things that I like to do. So, I think, when I was originally thinking about OBGYN, I remember a lot of our classmates were just like, "Kayana, you sure you want to do this? You sure you want to do this?" I think it was some aspect of the specialty was, time consuming. But it's definitely changed a lot now that you have hospitalists and laborists. You don't have to get that 3 o'clock call, 3 a.m. call of your patient in labor. You now have someone in the hospital that's covering that service.
Yeah.
So, the specialty and the time has gotten a lot
I think
better.
one thing I didn't realize in medical school and didn't realize till halfway through residency is that you actually choose the practice in which to work. So there's so much flexibility in
Yeah,
terms of being that laborist,
absolutely.
being in hospital, the doc in the box,
Yeah, yeah,
coming in to deliver your patients.
absolutely.
You could choose to work with the underserved. You could choose to do that boutique,
Yep, yep,
fancy medicine. But
absolutely,
definitely something
absolutely.
for everybody.
Absolutely. That's what I like so much about it. It was so much variety, and you could tailor your practice into what you wanted it to be. There's so many throughout the country, and I'm sure you can find one that suited, the aspects of your life that was so important to you.
So with your role as the clerkship director, what do you observe in students? Things they do poorly that piss you off, things they do well. What makes a good student on a clerkship?
Oh, I hope none of my students are listening to this. um, I realize that the students that come to downstate understand the patient population that they're dealing with, and just as the same with the residents, they understand the shortcomings of resources and funding, and they don't let that get them down. They take that and they find very creative ways to support or provide services to our
Hmm.
patients. So I think the students, residents go above and beyond for our patients and try to provide the best care that they can. They definitely understand, like I said, the shortcomings of how our patient population is seen in
Hmm.
society. They are culturally competent. So, that is beneficial, especially if you might not look like the person that you're providing care to. Something that I wish that they did a little bit better, understanding, that they have to For me, medical school was not just about being taught something, it was also self-directed
Hmm.
learning. And I wish that some people take it very seriously and some people like to be spoon-fed information. And I think they need to realize that for the rest of your life, it's going to be something that you're going to have to
Yes.
learn on your own. So it's going to be a lot of self-directed learning. So they'll eventually get it. Some people get it earlier than
Hmm.
others, and that's just something that I try to teach them very early on.
Absolutely. Like it's so clutch you mentioned that 'cause I know in medical school I kind of thought life in the world revolved around me because I'd made it this far and was paying so much money.
Mhm. Mhm.
But on
Mhm.
this side, as an attending, oh my God, I'm so busy
Mhm.
trying to teach residents that with the medical students, it can definitely get lost in the sauce, and
Mhm.
it's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard to break down
Yeah.
information on a level that they can learn something from it every day, and if they don't
Mhm.
take ownership of that, they're
Mhm.
definitely gonna have a disservice during the program.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So what do you look for in residents? Because a lot of people are gonna be applying to obstetric and gynecology, just in a general sense. What makes a
Mhm.
good OB resident?
Oh, somebody that can adapt, very quickly. Someone that, because in a drop of a hat, like everything can be very cool on the labor floor. In drop of a hat, some stuff can get real, real quick. And you just like, I was just sitting here like sipping my tea. I didn't really think that this baby was gonna be decelling like this, and now we gotta do a stat and then all these other,
But
complications. You,
luckily,
you you just
anesthesia
never
is
know.
Johnny on the spot, and we ready with the quickness.
Anyway, sometimes you got to page them and call them, and they're laying down, they're taking their call breaks and all that kind of stuff. So you got to find them. But the residents that I think go mesh very well with our program, like I said, ones that understand the patient population that we're dealing with, and knows that there are a lot of different health inequities and disparities that affect the care and lifelong conditions of our patients, and that we have to be very creative in not how we just treat our patients but how we just interact. There's some things that I can say to some of my young patients when I come in, and I got on X, Y, and Z. They're like, Dr. Ward, I didn't know it was like that. I didn't know you wore that. And I'm like, well, I'm from here too. So yeah, it's like that. We want people that have some drive in terms of research and education, teaching, that are able to take constructive criticism, because it's hard every day. Like, the residents give me feedback on things that I can do better, and I shouldn't take it in a personal way. It's just in a way to make myself
Hmm.
better. So I want the exact same thing for them. People that can sit down and laugh and have a good time, don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
go back to young Kayana. When did young Kayana decide to go into medicine?
I was 3.
What?
I was 3 years old, and I remember my father asking me like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I'm gonna be a doctor and I'm gonna be a lawyer."
Hmm.
Yeah, so part of that,
So
part of that
50-50.
worked. I know. So ever since then, I had always stuck with that. I remember one summer my grandmother had gotten sick, and I remember taking care of her, and it solidified that that was what I wanted to
How do you know
do.
what a doctor was at 3?
Um, watching the Huxtables.
True. You're right. I mean, that is what it is. I think as a lot of us, our first exposure
Oh
to
yeah,
what a black physician looked like
yeah,
was
yeah,
the Cosby Show. That's
yeah,
incredible. So then you went through high school, college. Like, at
yeah.
what point did it get real that, like, holy crap, I've got to buckle down and it's not going to be easy?
It was actually high school. I transferred schools in my sophomore year, and I had ended up in one of the medical science programs. So I was in like more of the excelling classes. I knew then, I said I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew where I wanted to go. And then when I got to college, it was really just about learning how to study. So it got real when it was time for me to take the MCAT and
Hmm.
apply. And for me, I'm not gonna lie, I had to take the MCAT a few times just because standardized tests, I really didn't know how to study for it. So I did have to take it a few times before I excelled at it.
Definitely shows determination. And when you went from college to medical school, how was that transition?
When I graduated, I went to Morgan State University for undergrad, and then I did a year at American University in a post-bac program. So it was basically to help me transition from college into med school. I'm really grateful and I'm really glad that that's, how my pathway ended up going. I think I probably would have had some difficulty if I had to transition straight from college to medical school. And I'm glad I did that year because it really pushed me and it forced me to buckle down. And I felt as though when it was time for me to go to Howard, I was more prepared and I felt as though I could handle it.
Um, as a black female physician, you're what's that, a double minority when it comes to medicine. So I know
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
all faced some difficult times along the way. What are some
Yeah.
examples that if you might don't mind sharing, of discrimination or different experiences you've had to overcome?
Mhm. So like for me, it's like I receive it from multiple different venues or avenues. Sometimes I might receive it from the patient that is like, "Oh, you have this young black doctor. I want the doctor that doesn't look like me because I may trust that information a little bit
Hmm.
more." So I've had that happen. I've had it from, attendings where it's, well, she's a female. I'm going to talk to her a certain type of way, not realizing who they're talking to, and that I might not be the one that you want to try that with. You might want to try that with somebody else. Okay, so you see it from, like, I walk into meetings and people, you can see it on people's face that they may hear around the med school, "Oh, Dr. Ward, Dr. Ward, Dr. Ward," but they're not able to put a face to the
Hmm.
name. And then when I walk into the room, they're kind of shocked that you have this young black doctor who, after 2 years of residency, I've accomplished these things and board certification. It shocks them, so you can see it on their face, like, "Oh, you're so young." Yeah, and I'm also very black as well.
In case
Next,
you hadn't noticed.
so yeah,
Because you
so
told me a
it's
story about one time, and it's so important because people are always watching, whether it's students or residents.
yeah,
You told me you were at a meeting. We can leave, we can change names and stories so they're not identified or
yeah,
whatever. But you're at a meeting with some of your students, and another faculty member
uh-huh.
just
Yes,
he did
yes,
something.
yes. Yes, yes. We were at what Downstate does. There's a program called the CARE program. It's career exploration and recruitment. And what they do is they like to have people from various specialties come and sit down with groups of students that are thinking, have some interest, but really don't want to know. And it provides that early exposure in like the first year. So we're sitting down. I'm, my awesome, fun, self,
If you say so
having
yourself.
a good old laugh. So yeah, anyway, you know what it is. And, I'm sitting there, we're having a good old conversation. I'm telling them about a C-section for a patient that we did with a BMI of 65. Now, I don't know if anybody knows what BMI of 65 looks like, but it's hard. So, we're talking about like the challenges of the surgery, and we're having a chuckle. And I guess maybe the way I was telling the story, the students thought it was funny, and they're laughing. This Caucasian older attending looks over and shushes us.
Mm.
We're not at a party or something like that. Something that he said. So I got up out of my seat and I walked over to him and I was like, "I'm Dr. Ward. I don't think you know who I am. I am the associate program director and the clerkship director. The next time that you have a problem, you can come over to our table and ask us to, tone it down. But we're not in a
Hmm.
library." So I told the lady running, I was just like, I don't know if it was because I was young, if it was because I was black, if it was because I was a female. I don't really know, but you can choose what you like, and I suggest that you don't invite him anymore. And they did not.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because of the example you set for those students that were watching you and looking up to you. Because these microaggressions and even macroaggressions occur so frequently. I think part of that New Yorker in you, man, be coming out strong.
Nah, I was like, nah, nah. I was like, no, not today. Not today, Satan. No, 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 no.
Geez. So definitely a excellent career and role for you to work in.
Yeah.
What are you incredibly passionate about in terms of your field, your career trajectory?
So there's the academic side to me. I like educating. I like teaching students, residents, because I think that's really important. I remember my experience at Howard, and I wanted to emulate that. I wanted to, even if people weren't thinking about OBGYN, they could at least appreciate me as an educator and their experience on the
Mhm.
rotation. And I think that's definitely something that a majority of the students feel and they get. I'm passionate about providing quality care to patients that look like me. I don't feel as though I need to have, or I don't feel as though my patients need to go to some Ivy League institution to get quality care. They can come to where I'm employed and know that the care that they're receiving is top notch. And also just being able to show them, like, hey, you have someone that looks like you, know that I have your
Mhm.
back. And I'm gonna do everything that I can to make sure that you leave the hospital in one piece with your
Yeah.
child.
And
You
there's so
know,
much information overload and there's so many stories in the news about especially black women
yeah,
going into the hospital to
yeah,
have a baby and the circumstances involved, they end up with extreme morbidity or
yeah,
mortality, senseless as it seems,
yeah.
death
Hmm.
for things that are ignored. What would you say to people? Because it's starting to engender fear in the community and concern that as a black
Hmm.
female, you're not as cared for as other people. What would you say to those people
Hmm.
that have those concerns?
I personally think it's definitely a concern that is warranted. Like, there's no one out there that can say that these concerns aren't something that we see and is not realistic. It just is. If you look, over time and look through issues and things that might have happened in the past, like, it's realistic for someone of color to feel as though, when I go to the hospital, I might have different outcomes compared to someone that doesn't look like me, or someone that's Caucasian, or of another ethnicity. Is realistic. I think the important the important thing that needs to happen is, there needs to be a rising or increase in people of color that are in the
Yeah.
field, so people feel comfortable and they feel as though, I'm going to make sure that nothing happens to you, because I understand the trials and tribulations that are going on in your life. I've likely suffered from some of those things. So there's a mutual understanding between the two of us, that I'm just going to make sure that I'm going to provide the same information that I provide to this same patient to you. And I want you to choose based on, your life experiences, and your health, and a lot of other different things.
Absolutely.
So being educated and having, that exposure and people that are in the field. Like I said, I'm the first doctor in my family. So a lot of times when there's something going on with a family member, who do they call? They call me. Now, I'm not a urologist. I can't help. But, having that person in your family that's a physician or medicine, you think like, hey, well, they probably know what's going
Yeah.
on. So they feel safe.
That's so important. Tell me about birth plans. Because as an anesthesiologist, I'm only peripherally involved, but I do see some crazy birth plans that come across the desk. I keep it moving usually,
Yeah.
but what's one of the
Yeah.
craziest, what, you can say without, HIPAA violation or whatever?
Nah, I
You can't
can't
say it?
say. I can't say. What I will say about birth plans, to me, for me, when a patient comes in and I see them for the first time and they're initiating prenatal care with me, and I'm their physician, I'm their obstetrician, having a conversation about what's going to happen throughout the pregnancy, what's to be expected, different modes of delivery, to me is a birth plan or a prenatal
True.
plan. I explain to all of my patients, hey, given your history, it is realistic for you to think that this mode is going to happen versus this mode. You need to be understanding and realistic that, sometimes emergencies happen. You may need to end up with an emergency procedure. And that might not have been something that you were expecting, but I want you to know about that well in advance. So to me, it's all about having a conversation, not going into that paternalistic thought or theory and telling patients what they're going to do, allowing them to be fully knowledgeable about everything that can happen early on and multiple times so that when it's time for them to come in, it's not about making a plan, it's about having the safest delivery.
Awesome. Great answer. I'm sure you made a lot of people happy. And let's in closing, what would you say to people about the stereotype of obstetricians? How would you change that perception?
Sometimes when I talk to people, they're a little worried about their rotation, especially students. They're always worried because they're like, "Oh, I heard this rotation. People are, a little tougher. They may be mean." I tell them at the end of the day, you're shadowing a physician that is trying to make sure that not only a woman, but her baby also leaves the
Mm-hmm.
hospital safely without any problems. So sometimes you have to be very understanding of the emergencies that may happen. And you need to understand. I think there was a time period where OBGYNs were constantly on call and overworked. And I think in terms of like time management and sleep deprivation, that definitely plays a role on people's attitudes and their interactions. I can definitely say now, I think, a lot of the people I interact with now are, a lot happier. They're probably getting a lot more sleep. And, they're getting back to the point where they realize like this is why I got into this specialty. And I think students and residents appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so too. It definitely helps to set the expectations and realizing that, yeah, people are overworked. Residents are overworked and they don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
time to cater to students.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
everybody deals with stress differently.
Yes.
So it is what it is. Always.
Especially, yeah, especially when you go, like we go into OBGYN, our viewpoint is a little different compared to other specialties because we go into it wanting to bring life and to have women give birth and that whole process. When bad outcomes happen, I think it does hit some of us a little harder because that's not something that we anticipate. We have younger patients that can tolerate a lot of different conditions and procedures compared to patients that may be a little older that you may see in other specialties. So when you hear about, a maternal death or fetal demise, those things tend to hit us a little
Yeah.
harder. And I think some people may take it a little differently.
If you were to sit down and have coffee with
Yes.
anybody, who would it be?
Ooh, it could be anyone. I'm gonna have to say my Aunt Trudy.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. You, Steven, you met
Yeah.
my
Love
aunt,
me some Aunt Trudy.
my aunt Trudy. Yeah. This was my father's older sister. She passed away. I think it was 2 years into my
Oh wow.
residency, and she was outside of like my mother, father, and sister. She was probably one of my biggest supporters when I was applying to OBGYN and went on all these interviews. She traveled to all these places with me.
Mm-hmm.
She had just retired. Um and she provided me with, a different outlook on a lot of the, you know, life issues and stuff that, black women have to go through. And I I would love to hear that. If I could hear that one more time, that would
That's
be great.
yeah. I remember Aunt Trudy,
Yeah.
and I remember you definitely dealing with that tough time, the residency, and that just goes to show, back to our previous point, you
Yeah.
never know what people are dealing with in residency. You dealt with
Absolutely.
losing a family member, losing a co-resident that
Yeah.
was near and dear to all of us, and
Yeah.
you just you pushed on through that. Just speaks to how incredibly strong you are. It's so
Yeah.
important that you share your
Thank you.
story with us because other people are definitely going
Absolutely.
through some of the same things. If our listeners wanted to contact you for maybe follow-up questions, I know you're extremely busy with your job. What is the best way to kind of get in touch with you?
Oh, my email address. My Kayana.ward@downstate.edu. Um, I was also thinking about making a general public OB
Mm-hmm.
page on Instagram, but I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, get on it. We gotta try and get that
I
figs discount code.
I just ordered some figs.
Oh Lord, you pay full price?
No.
All right.
I found a coupon.
You know I don't pay full price for anything.
I can't.
Dr. Ward.
Well, thank you so much for this
No,
opportunity.
thank you for coming and sharing with us. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Black Doctors Podcast, where you will hear inspiring stories of minority professionals. Our stories told by us.